you this morning, online fam. Really good to be together. There are some things right now in our world we are not debating. There are also lots of things we are debating, yes, but there are some things we are not debating. One of the things we are not debating is that in a whole lot of arenas, we need better, yes? We just need better. We need a better way. We need a better love. We need a better conversation. We need better conditions of peace in our own life. We want to have better circumstances, but oftentimes when the circumstances aren't working, we really come to grips with what we really need, desperately need to be better. And so this week again, just convinced me all the more that this is the series, the direction Jesus is walking us in these next few weeks as we launch a new year with many of the same circumstances, some of them even growing worse. It's just this experience of better. How can we experience better if none of the circumstances are really changing for the better? How can our life be an experience of better? In order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through honestly, just a few lines. It's really a few lines, but it comes from Jesus' biggest in one spot recorded teaching. And so if you've got a Bible this morning, I'd even invite you to open it, or maybe you're going to scroll on your phone or something like that to Matthew chapter 6. But in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, there's this long recorded passage that's often called the Sermon on the Mount. It's the most teaching of Jesus we have in any one moment. It's written by a guy named Matthew, who's writing it. This is really key. Catch this. He's writing it to a bunch of Jewish people. And he's writing it because they had like front row seats to Jesus and missed who he really was. And so I often think Matthew is like really fitting for those of us who live life in or around the church and have a front row seat to Jesus, but might, without even knowing it, actually miss who Jesus really is and what he's really doing. And Matthew is kind of written from that standpoint. It's just this, please see him, please see him, please see him. And so it's fitting that Matthew would record this really long block of teaching, long by the gospel standard, but this block of teaching from Matthew. And Jesus talks about all sorts of things, about ways to live in the world. And in Matthew chapter 6, one of the things he does is he says, hey, I'm assuming you're going to pray. There are a few things in Matthew chapter 6 that Jesus assumes his followers will do and people who would choose to follow him would do. And one of them is pray. He says, I'm going to assume you're going to pray, so let me just give you a way of prayer. Now, this prayer, when we get there and we read it, some of you will say, oh man, I memorized that, or I memorized that when I was a kid, or I've prayed that at certain events, like with groups of people. We prayed that at a funeral or something like that. And it's a very common prayer, but it's fine to memorize it. In fact, I'd even encourage some of you maybe to memorize it, because in the memorizing of it, here's what we hope would happen, is that we would actually experience Jesus' original design from this model prayer. And that was that we could get a glimpse into the heart of Jesus about our ongoing conversation with him, that we could get a glimpse into the desire of God about how we talk to him and the freedoms that we have in talking to him. So we're going to look at that. And for the first couple of weeks, we're just going to look at a couple of lines from that prayer, literally just a couple of words at times. We'll finish 4 weeks from now just pushing a little past the prayer and just continue to see some ways we can experience and live better. Matthew chapter 6 is where we're going to read. We're going to start reading in verse 5, which is a little context to prayer. And here's what Jesus says, teaching these people. He says, and when you, and let me just give you a quick hit on the you is an enormous group of people gathered on a mountainside. It's poor people, rich people, sick people, healthy people, powerful people, weak people. It's people from different people groups that don't really get along. They're all just there because Jesus is teaching and offering something that's just drawing people. There's something about it. A lot of them will end up saying, oh, nope, no. But they're drawn to Jesus, who's teaching in a different way than anything they've ever heard and offering something different than they've ever experienced. And so there's all these people crammed onto this mountainside that wouldn't really gather in places together under any other occasion. And so that's who Jesus is talking to. He says, so when you, this big group of people, when you pray, please don't be like the hypocrites. They just like praying and standing in synagogues on street corners. They try and pray where people can see them. And I tell you the truth, when they do that, and that's their only prayer, whatever reward they're going to get, they received it. But when you pray, take some time and get into a room and close the door and just be alone and pray to your Father who's not seen with your physical eyes. Then your Father, who sees everything in your life, who always sees you, who always has an eye on you, so of course he sees what you think is done in secret, then he'll reward you. And when you pray, don't worry about trying to keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they'll be heard because of their many words and that they'll somehow convince God to hear them, or that they'll somehow stumble finally into the perfect phrase, or they'll somehow sound just theologically deep enough. Jesus is like, don't worry about all that. Don't worry about babbling on. Don't worry about getting your phrases perfectly crafted. Don't worry about making sure everything lines up just right. Don't worry about sounding more spiritual than the other person. Just don't. Don't worry about all that. Don't take all that pressure on. Don't be like them. The reason you don't have to be is because your Father that you're praying to, he already knows what you need before you even ask him anyway. So what you going on for? He already knows. He already knows the better you need. We can talk lots of things better we need in our world and our nation right now, but the thing that you need better in your life that you want to ask Jesus about for his help, he already knows. He already knows. And Jesus is like, just pray with some freedom and some encouragement that comes from that. So he says, when you do it, this is how you should pray. This is just the model. Our Father in heaven, hallowed or holy, like most revered be your name. Your kingdom in your way, let that come. Your will and your desire be done on this earth that we're living in, just as it already is in heaven. And would you please give us what we need for today, just our daily bread? And would you please forgive us our debts as we also forgive people who have hurt us and caused us pain? And please lead us not into temptation, but would you deliver us from this evil one that's trying to steal and kill and destroy our lives? Would you deliver us from that? In this model prayer, Jesus says some things to us. And here's a little bit of the invitation from Jesus right off the bat. And here's something that actually fuels prayer. What really fuels prayer is not listing our commitments to God. It's understanding God's commitments to us. And in this prayer, Jesus is actually expressing some of God's commitments to us. Your prayer, my prayer, isn't made better by getting a list of things that we're telling God. God, I've made this commitment, this commitment, this commitment. I've done this, and this. Prayer is really the catalyst of prayer is when we understand prayer starts with a huge list of things God's already done for us. The commitments God already has to us. When you pray, listen, next time you pray, which could be in this millisecond, you can know, oh, wait. I'm not trying to convince God of my commitments. God's trying to convince me and get me to hear his commitments to me. And it opens up all this permission inside of our prayers. And so Jesus prays, and he gives us a glimpse into this, and he starts with just these two words that you've probably prayed before, you've probably heard before. In fact, sometimes this prayer is called this prayer. It's these two words, our Father. Will you just say those two words with me? Our Father. Here we go. Let's say it. Our Father. Look, those, I hope, those have the potential to be words of comfort, words of compassion, words of presence, and words of togetherness, right? Our Father. But they're also really dramatic words, two words, really dramatic. Because in these two words, in these two simple words, Jesus is right off the bat trying to establish something for us. In two words, our Father. Jesus is establishing some of God's greatest commitments to us by establishing our identity. Our Father. In two words, Jesus says, look, I hope you're comforted. I hope you get compassion. I hope you experience his presence. But these two words also are telling you who you are. It's giving you your identity. God's commitment to you, one of his commitments to you, is to give you an identity. Now, here's the thing, though, right? Identity is kind of tricky. It's a little bit of a tricky word. It goes in seasons all throughout history, not just currently, where it gets a little more energy and a little more attention. Several years ago, Time Magazine ran a cover story that said identity, the word for the year. I think they missed it by a little. It's more like the word for the decade or something. I mean, it just really matters to us, right? And it should. All throughout history, people in every civilization have been trying to figure out who am I and who are we? Like, who am I? What is my identity? Who am I? But again, we've used the word so much and it feels a little like squishy. What is identity really? I want to just give us a little bit of a working definition to help us today. And this definition is shaped by a guy named Timothy Keller, who I'm immensely grateful for his ministry and his writing. And this is how we could boil down identity. It's two components. It's a sense of self and a sense of worth. A sense of self and a sense of worth. But here's the thing, like the sense of self, like, okay, like who am I? Who am I? In the sense of worth, like what makes me significant? Where do I feel significant? But we got to go one level deeper on that and say inside the sense of self, inside the core, what we really need that to be is we need that to be very durable. When we're looking for an identity, we're looking for an identity that can't actually be shaken. We're looking for who we are, and we need who that is to be durable throughout our life. Then this sense of worth, this sense of significance. What is it that makes me significant? What is it that actually makes me valuable? When do I feel? When do I experience? Where do I know I'm most significant? Sense of self and sense of worth. And identity it's a needed thing. I mean, it is a reality that you and I need to know our identity. We need to live from an identity that has a durable core. It's not shakeable. It's not movable. It's not repealable. It is certainly not based on circumstance. It is not based on trajectory of a nation. It is not based on cultural moment. We need a more durable identity, yes? And we need to understand, like, okay, where does my significance actually come from? There are ways that we can get that. One of the ways that we can get this identity is we can maybe build it. We can kind of search for it. We can achieve it. We can put a lot of energy into achieving an identity and achieving an understanding of this supposed durable core and this sense of worth. And to try this is a really noble thing because the need for identity is a real thing. And so the search for identity is a noble thing. It's a noble cause. But if we're going to build it, if we were going to achieve an identity, what would it take? Like, what would we do? Now, I want to just give you a few things, and you'll know most of them because we've done most of them. Right? The first one is that we can work for it. We can just flat out, straight up work for it. I'm going to work really hard to prove my significance. I'm going to work to be so good and it's so high contributing to something that will establish my significance. And if I can establish enough of my own significance, then that significance will actually become what we hope would be our durable core. That will determine my sense of self. So we actually start with the second piece to try and form the first piece. Look, so many of us do this. I've lived a huge chunk of my life trying this one. I'm gonna be so good at what I do. I'm gonna be so good. I'm gonna accomplish this or do this or go that, or I'm gonna get great at this, right? So if I could just be known for something, and here's the thing, even if nobody really knows me for it, if I can convince myself that I've done enough to be significant, then I'm gonna hope that can be the durable core. I'm gonna work harder, get another sale, make more money, get another promotion, accomplish more, build this kind of family, build this kind of life. I'm gonna build that and do it. And when I do it, I'm counting on the fact it will be enough to satisfy and be a stable core. Here's the challenge. You already know what I know. That's exhausting. Most of us lose many of the things we think we're trying to protect while we're trying to build it. And we just got to have an honest conversation from them. Okay, we can build all of that worth and everything else. But when we build that and that becomes the core, that's not a durable core. There is a day coming that what you are good at today will not be what you are known for tomorrow. There's a day coming that your greatest contributions will no longer be what you can contribute. There's a day coming when the contributions you make today aren't contributions you even want to make anymore. But if they are anchored to this, if your identity is anchored to this, where are you going? We work so hard to prove it. And look, here work, it could be jobs, it could be family, it could be status, right? I mean, we just work at it. But it's not actually durable, it's exhausting, it's a burden. And part of the burden is we don't really know where the finish line is. How do I actually know when I've done enough to be, who gets to define significance? Who gets that, right? Boy, it's challenging. Now, there are some other things that we do. One of them is as we go through this process of sorting our feelings. To build an identity, to find it, shape it, we're sorting our feelings. Now, again, listen, there's some good in all of these. It's good to be a hard worker. It's good to work with excellence. It's good, right? All of that's great. It's good to process feelings, and right, we need to sort that. But when we sort our feelings for the sake of establishing an identity, here's what we're banking on. We are banking on the fact that if I dig deep enough into my life, and I follow my feelings, I will be led to a feeling or set of feelings that points out to me who I am. I just need to understand my feelings enough. And when I do, that they will tell me, this is who you are. This is who you are. Again, there's some real noble cause in this thing. We need to understand our feelings. We need to process emotions and hurts and burdens and dreams and losses. All of it, all of that matters. But here's the thing that none of us really want to talk about when we venture into this one, but that you and I both know is true. When we get searching our feelings and we get diving deep into our feelings in hopes that our feelings will actually point out to us who we are, do you know what we end up bumping into? That sometimes we don't want to talk about it. Is that you and I have really deep-seated feelings that often conflict with one another. Right? You've got some feelings that dig you deep. You think, I'm going to get to my feelings. You have feelings that when presented with certain circumstances and certain events and certain milestone moments in your life, you have conflicting feelings. And every time there's a conflicting feeling, if you are searching for your identity, you have to suppress one and elevate the other. Right? You've got to lean into one. And this is where inside of the umbrella of Christianity, this is where we are way more influenced by culture than we even know. Because culture is actually determining, most of the time, we're following the lead of culture on which feeling we will suppress and which one we will elevate. Let me give you an example. As a guy, I've lived just enough years to kind of to see multiple generations in this thing. Just as a guy. So sometimes just as a guy, I'm like, man, I really want to cry about that moment, or heaven forbid, about that movie. Yes, Jason Bourne movies can make you cry. No, but yeah, I mean, right? Like, yeah, like I want to cry about that, right? And here's the thing. Listen, here's the thing. When you encounter that emotion, you have to make a decision, because I've watched multiple generations. I've watched some who would say, don't you dare. Well, no, we don't do that. We always show strength. And to cry would be to show weakness. And then there's another side that's not going to say, no, we would always show the weakness. The strength is actually bad. And so this cultural screen is running in front of us, and we're saying, look, when I experience this, look, that I've got conflicting emotions. I want to be strong, but am I okay being weak? Maybe I want to be weak, but am I okay being strong? And all of a sudden, we have to choose to pick one, suppress the other. Do you understand that? That's why when we're trying to use our feelings to determine it, we're going to bump into a problem, and we actually, at the end of the day, may not be the one determining which feeling is going to shape the identity most. Let me give you another one, because oftentimes these are based around a strength or a weakness, right? When we're encountered with which one are we going to choose? And I think some of this is really healthy. What's happened in our culture a little bit over the last few years is we've gotten much more okay acknowledging when we're scared of something, right? When there's a scary time. But it's got so much movement now that it almost feels like being afraid has to be part of your identity. So here's the thing. Just your age, whatever age in life you are, 55, 95, 105, whatever age you're at right now, just kind of picture yourself standing there in a moment where you might experience something or see something in the world or in your life that could cause you to experience this feeling of being scared. And in the moment, you have to make a decision. Well, I acknowledge being afraid because that could make me feel weak. But wait, maybe culture actually says acknowledging it's a strength. Or no, I'm not going to acknowledge it because I'm going to be strong. Like I won't let weakness be shown. And you've confronted with a conflicting feeling because part of you wants to be able to just express that and part of you wants to be able to push through it. And all of a sudden there's this challenge and you make a decision based somewhat on the culture and the screens that are running in front of us in the culture to help us know which feeling we think we're supposed to process. Listen, here's how I know. Remember I told you to just picture yourself at your age in this moment in life? Now I want you to picture somebody else, your age, exact same age, from another part of the world, stand beside them, and the odds are really good they'll pick the opposite feeling than you. They'll just pick the other one because their culture influenced them to pick that one, right? Again, it's really good to sort the feeling. It's really good to process. And we talk about counseling all the time. It's good to navigate these roads. But listen, when we're counting on them to be the durable core of the identity, that's risky because our own emotions are conflicting. Now, let me just help you one more way to see this. If you're 15 years old and you're here today, I just want to tell you something, that 20-year-old you is going to look back at 15-year-old you and think, really? But nobody else gets off the hook, because 30-year-old's going to look back at 20-year-old, and 50-year-old's going to look back at 20-year-old. I mean, and by the time you get to 70-year-old's going to look back at 20-year-old and think, are you kidding me? But it's not a fun, because 70-year-old's going to look at 65-year-old and think, are you kidding? Right? Things move, gang. Things move. The feelings move, the adjustments move, right? So is that truly a picture of who we really are? Again, there's a noble cause in that, a noble endeavor. When we choose that way, when we say, look, I'm going to form this, and I'm going to form it based on my feelings, I'm going to chase my feelings inward enough, and I'm going to hope I can find one and grab a hold of that. That's my identity, or a series of them. We're left with a couple options. And begin, because we need it to be durable, and we need to know we have significance. And so when we do it, then we go hunting for acceptance. We hunt for people who affirm what we think about our feelings. We go hunting for people, and we almost don't even know we're hunting. We go looking, we find ourselves drawn to people who agree with what we think about our feelings or what our thoughts are, right? And a lot of times what we've done is we've started out in life with some type of framework of who we are and where we come from and whatever else. And we begin to pull away from that. We begin to question it, and we pull away from it. And when we begin to pull away from it and we begin to sort these feelings, one of the things we take some pride in, understandably so, we take some pride in the fact of we are being independent. I'm exercising my independence. I'm exercising my strength. I don't need approval. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need that group anymore. But so often what we get duped by in the cultural moment is we actually didn't show any independence. We just changed which group was cheerleading for us. We just switched fan clubs, right? And listen. It's so magnified right now in a day where our echo chambers are only getting bigger and louder. You have to work really hard to hear from people who don't see it the way you see it and have real conversations. But we go hunting. Why do we go hunting for the acceptance? Listen, because we need to know we're significant. That's part of the identity. We're never going to have a durable core if we can't be convinced that the durable core includes our significance. We need, again, noble cause. We're really after it for a good reason. And then the fourth thing, because what happens is we begin to shape it this way, and there's something intuitively in us that knows this is not actually strong. I want it to be, and again, the desire is so good. It's so good. I want this to be strong, and I have worked my tail off to get to this point. I want this to be strong. And now I got some people that accept me, but in order to protect it, in order to keep it strong, I'm going to be staunchly exclusive. I have to be staunchly exclusive. I will rid my life of people who don't see it the same way, who don't talk like me, think like me, act like me. I will rid my life of people who don't 100% agree with that. Those people, I will deem those people as not safe for me. Hey, listen. This is part of our challenge as a nation, gang. We have gotten staunchly exclusive of people who don't agree with us. But I get it, right? Because in order to protect an identity that has to be durable, but we intuitively know isn't really durable because it was based on feelings that might conflict and might move, and it was based on an acceptance from a group of people who are also fallible and may or may not stay true and faithful to us, and may or may not even stay true to the identity they're claiming in the moment, right? It's all understandable. And it all comes like from good desires, from a desire we have to shape this identity. But here's the thing, you get to the end of this road, or you even get a long ways down the road, not even the end, and what we all realize, and what I know is true for a whole bunch of us gathered today, in this room, in our homes, here's what I know is true. Across every age spectrum we have represented, is that some of you are worn out fighting to figure out who you are. You are worn out. Is your identity in what you do? Is your identity in what you feel? Is your identity in your role as a parent? Is your identity in the job? Is my significance from who I'm with? Am I established by who I am? Am I identified by who I voted for or what thought I align with? You are worn out. It is a burdensome, weighty journey that starts with really good motives. You need an identity. You got to figure that out. But it starts with really good motives. Okay? But even if we get there in the end, here's what's true. What we've done is we've gotten an identity that we achieved. We achieved it. We built it. And now we're working to protect it. We achieved it. No matter how tired it made us, no matter how tired it makes us to protect it, no matter how, right? We achieved it. We got it. But this achieving of this identity is part of what makes Jesus' words so shocking. When Jesus says, our Father, to a group of people who are not necessarily all aligned in together, when Jesus says, our Father, he's saying, hey, look, let me tell you what your God-given identity is and what it still can be if you want it to be. Your identity is that you can be in my family. Your identity, when Jesus says our, he's not just talking about our, he's including himself. Do you get it? Like Jesus is saying, look, we're praying to the same Father. I've come to give up my life for you so that you and I could have the same Heavenly Father. I've come so that I could, what we sang about earlier, reconcile you back to the Father who actually created you. He's saying, look, I want to introduce you to your identity. Your identity, if you want it to be, your identity can just simply be that you're this child of God. You're a child of the living God. You're a child of this Heavenly Father. And Jesus is so committed to it that he's going to give himself up to make it happen. Right? That's how committed he is to it. Just like you and I are very committed to finding our identity. That's why we'll work more hours and push harder and maybe run over somebody or build something or do the feeling work, right? Because we're committed to. Jesus so committed that he would give himself up for it. And here's where this gets blurry, especially for those of us under the umbrella of Christianity who claim to be Jesus followers. Here's the thing, listen, we're very aware of that price. Right? We're very aware of the price. Jesus gave up his life, experienced the crucifixion, experienced death, separation from his Father, took the weight of sin, became sickness, right? We're very aware of the price, but we are a little bit like Oscar Wilde, the old poet, who said, we have become a people who are aware of the price of everything and the value of nothing. We're very aware of the price that Jesus paid. We're very aware, we're very locked in about it. We talk about it, we sing about it, we're grateful for it as we should be. But we often forget about the value that price paid actually conveyed. We actually forget about the fact that Jesus didn't just pay a price to write a ledger. He paid a price to convey a value, how much he values us, how significant he already sees you, how valuable you already are to him. He's giving everything he has, literally everything he has, in an attempt to say, look, you can have this identity as a member of my family and as a son of the living God. You can have this identity. Please understand that when I give myself up for this later, it is not just to balance the scale. It's to show you how significant you already are. It's to show you how significant you are, which really means this invitation right here of Jesus, the invitation, this prayer and this identity is to come to this understanding that if we grab a hold of this, we begin to learn that we don't search for significance because we're already seen as significant. We don't search for significant. We're already seen as significant. We don't have to spend our life trying to fuel that and trying to go get it and trying to prove the significance and it's like, no, let me just give it to you. You are a child of the living God. You don't have to go seeking for your significance. You are already seen as significant. It's already what's true about you. And Jesus is trying to hand it to people, right? He's trying to say, here, take it. Here, just take it. Here. Do you hear the contrast between trying to achieve it? Let me give it to you this way. Here's the thing. If we could get this, if we could understand this commitment from God to us, and if we could allow ourselves to be on the other side of this equation, what we would begin to understand is that the most durable core, the most durable identity, and the greatest, most dependable, long-lasting sense of significance comes when we understand and when we live that the better identity is received, not achieved. The better identity for your life is the one that you will receive, not the one you will achieve. It is the one that you will receive from the God who loved you from the beginning, who created you to be with you, who's always wanted you, who has always seen you, who has always noticed you, who has always chosen you, who gave up Jesus for you. The better identity is the one that we will receive, not the one that we will achieve. The better identity is the one that we will receive from a faithful, dependable God who's faithful to us when we are so faithless. Right? Who's giving himself for us up while we're viewing him as the enemy and like pushing against us. Right? Is that the better identity is the one you receive. This I can be a child of God. I could live like a child of God. I could live like a son or daughter of God. I could live with my significance already established, and then instead of working so hard to earn it, I could live expressing it. I could live in the confidence that I'm already significant, whether I get another sale or not, or whether my kids are perfect or not, or whether I could live out of that significance. I could live already knowing that the one whose opinion matters most has already said I'm significant. The better identity is the one that, not that you achieve, but it's the one that you receive. Hey, listen, part of what we're coming to grips with in this time is that a lot of the circumstances that we have leaned on, counted on, and enjoyed, they are changing, friends. But your identity doesn't have to waver one bit if it's one that's received. If it's one that's just received. That achieved identity is weighting, it's burdensome, it's heavy. It's hard to get to, it's hard to protect, it's hard to, and Jesus said, I just got a better way for you. I got a lighter way for you, a better way, a better identity. Several years ago, my wife Erica and I, we got captured watching the show The Amazing Race. Any of y'all know The Amazing Race? Y'all know that? Y'all know that show? Yeah. We started watching it several years ago, and recently, I don't remember how this happened. Recently, we said, hey, let's watch it with Sid and Ken's, our daughters. Let's just watch it with them. And so we were like, hey, let's go back to season 1, which is like, I don't even know how many years ago. And that lasted like 5 minutes because it's so old and the images are so bad and the video is so bad. Our girls are like, might as well be black and white, Dad. Okay, so we're just like, nope. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. Let's get some color in. So we jumped way ahead, right? And so we've watched one season. It's kind of become our Sunday night little tradition over the last couple of months. We get home from a small group that we're a part of. Our girls get home from Journey students or whatever, and we just pile onto some couches and we watch an episode or two of Amazing Race, a past season. And we just finished watching a season together. And there was this episode in that. It's these people who travel, they're racing in pairs of 2 all around the world, and at the end of each leg, usually somebody's eliminated, and at the end, the last standing team, they win $1 million. And it's this incredible experience. It's literally all around the world. And this whole time, they're lugging these backpacks that have everything they need to survive this trip, right? And I mean, they're just enormous backpacks. I'm assuming just packed of changes of clothes and hats and different weather clothes and shoes. I mean, just they're huge. And they lug them all around the world. In one of the episodes we were watching, there was this team, Joey and Tara, and we kind of started rooting for them a little bit along the way. And Joey is this kind of big and strong guy, and he'd done some feats, like he'd done some of the challenges, just showed off all his strength. He's from New York, this rough, tough customer. Like he's great, and we're kind of cheering for him. And there's this one leg of the race. I think they were in Vietnam or something. It was remarkably hot, and it was remarkably humid. And they bumped into a couple of challenges, and it got long, and the project got longer and physically demanding. And you can watch throughout the episode, Joey, like his energy is fading. He's just depleting. He's just wearing thin. And it stuck out because we hadn't seen him that way before, because he's a pretty strong guy, right? And they finally get towards the end of this leg of the race. And to finish, to get to the final moment, there's always this mat that's laying there. It's kind of just spread out in the middle of this, wherever they're at. And there's this guy, Phil, who's the host of the show, and somebody from the nation they're in. And they're heading towards that last thing where they want to get to that mat and kind of finish this leg of the race. And they had to climb this obscene number of steps. I think it might have been like 520 steps or something to get to the end of this thing on this peak in Vietnam. And he's just toast. He's done, right? But he just keeps moving, and he keeps lumbering up to that thing. And he finally gets to the little peak, that top step, and he gets over the thing. And I just remember he just kind of collapses onto this mat. And he's just down. And his partner, Tara, is there, and Phil's there. And they begin to talk. They begin to tell him where they're out in the race. And he's just finished. And they eventually kind of get him back up. And he's kind of standing back up. And he's propped a little bit on his teammate's shoulder. And I just still remember so clearly Phil, the host of the show, just taking another step towards him. And he reaches out to him and says, Joey, how about if we just go ahead and take this backpack off? And he just starts unclipping this thing for him. He's this guy like just dead, completely exhausted, worn out, depleted, spent everything he had. So much so that he couldn't even really see or think at the end to get the heaviest thing he's carrying off of his back. Unload that thing. Unload that thing. Hey, friends, some of us, we've been at this thing of identity for so long. We've been at it for our whole life. We're at it now in ways we're not even able to see, really. We're searching to understand who we are and how that could be durable. And we're searching for this significance. And we're willing to do almost anything to get it. And I just want to say today that the invitation of Jesus is to say, just receive it. Just let me unclip that backpack, that burden of trying to achieve it. Let me just let go of that for you. See, I just know so many of you are tired. You're just worn out on it. I know. Today, would you experience a better identity? Would you experience a received identity? One in which Jesus says, hey, you're with me. You're with me. You're a child of the living God. You're a son or daughter of the living God. You're included in my family. You are loved. You are seen. You are chosen. Regardless of what happens around you, I've got you. Regardless of what you accomplish or don't accomplish, I love you. Regardless of what you did yesterday or what you'll do, I love you. Would you just receive that identity? I think it's a big enough moment for us that we're going to do something, honestly, we almost never do here. But I'm going to ask you, some of you, if you want to just be a person to say, I'm going to receive that identity. I just can't achieve it anymore. I'm tired of being so unsure of what it really is and who I really am. I'm trying to work so hard to protect it. I'm just going to receive it. If that would be you today, in just a minute, I'm just going to invite you to stand right where you're at. Just a little bit as a spiritual statement to say, you know what? Stake in the ground. Here I am as a great receiver. And maybe even at home, you'll stand up off your couch or at the kitchen table and just say, here I am, today I'm a good receiver. Jesus, please take the backpack of the burden of trying to prove and earn this thing